moved to Parramatta Eels, who finished 10th. 12 wins, 12 losses, similar, exactly the same as the Cowboys, with a positive for and against of 13. It's interesting because when they were hot in attack, they blew a few teams off the field, so they must have copped it in return.
Well,
second last with completion rate of 75%, which is a big one, obviously. Tackle efficiency is pretty much the same for most of these teams. It's around 85 to 87%, apart from your tops and your bottoms. Points for, they were 7th in total and 5th on average, with 24 points on average, 23 conceded. Handling error, middle of the road. Penalties conceded, they were last. So they conceded less penalties than anybody else.
Jeez,
with 122.
For a team
Don't they what? Blokes throwing arms around.
Anyway. Maybe there's something to
that. Yeah. Errors, they were middle of the road. They actually, on average, they were 4th. So they had more errors than pretty much most other sides in the competition. Did not kick a 40-20 for the year, which is unusual considering the blokes
I was at a game at Combank when they did.
Apparently, that's what Fox Lab's telling me anyway. They were first in offloads with 13, average of 13 offloads a game. Dummy half runs, they were last, which obviously came off the back of who they started with at the start of the year, and then having young Brendan Hands, who was just there to dish the ball off to the rest of the blokes. Kick meters 4th on average, which is expected with the likes of Moses in your team. Run meters 4th on average, so they did quite well getting the ball down the other end of the field. But here's some of the other ones that are the problems. Tackle bust 16th overall out of 17 teams. They're not breaking enough tackles, not creating enough opportunities.
But that's a weird stat to combine with offloads. Maybe like they're playing. Maybe they're happy to get in the line and
make a few more meters because they're making running meters, so they get They don't actually break the tackle, but they make the meters.
That's a weird one.
That does make sense. Because if you look at their points, they were 8th on overall on points.
That's me. Like I don't.
Line breaks, they were 9th with Sivo. Tackle busts, they didn't make a lot of tackle busts. Penasini with 88.
I feel like they're.
But their offloads, they had the first 2 offloaders in the competition, with Hopgood, who ran first with 56, and Cartwright, who was second with 52.
And then Bolo was 8.
Yes.
So with
line break
39.
assists to 19th with Gutherson. There's a few injuries with Moses and Brown, which probably killed their numbers a little bit.
There,
Mentioned Hopgood had a fantastic year. He was 8th in tackles overall. Missed tackles, Cartwright 30th. So there's nothing that really stands out as to how bad they were, apart from probably line breaks and tackle busts being able to.
Here's the thing is Parramatta. They're
rating.
And they're the only team that beat Penrith twice this year.
Yes, correct.
But they're the most frantic team in the competition. They are.
Well, handling errors, they were 6th, and what else was the other one? Errors, they were 4th. So that probably says, they turned the ball over a fair bit more than they should have.
Which maybe ties again into trying to push offloads.
Yep.
But they did beat Penrith twice, and on their merits twice.
Correct.
And they'd always get up for that. But
another shocking start of the season, though. One out of the first 5 games.
Absolutely. But they had the hardest run. They copped everyone at the start.
I think South's maybe a fraction harder, but
they had that period where they had everyone off the bye.
Yes, correct. Through the middle of the year. Yep.
But they had they're such a frantic team, and they're driven by Moses and Gutho, and it's all happening and getting up and that real.
And if it's not happening, blokes are trying to push passes, and that just only adds to that.
So in attack, they would. When you took Brown out of that for a big chunk of the year, and you take Reid Marnie out of that, it loses a little bit of cohesion.
Brown to me now seems more of a calming influence than Moses.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he does. Yeah, because Moses and Gutho get in their little world where they're either only playing for each other or trying to do trick shots,
score 50 points,
or have double wraparounds and shit like that. And I think
Brown's happy to hit lane or take the ball himself into the line.
Exactly. Or can just have a nice clean left foot kick. And but I think that and given they had no when you take Reed out of it's an odd thing because I don't necessarily think Reed added to the Dogs what he would add here, which is that other calming
yes,
influence
100%.
here. He went there and
Yep.
had his own season, whereas here, it's just, if nothing else, it's like when you're a bit odd. Safe things around you make you happy. That's me
Hands
happy.
did
There's a
come into
Freudian slip. his
own later in the year,
but they went out and signed Hodgson, who was 34, and everyone under the sun and their collective dogs all knew it was going to happen, and it duly happened. That's such a baffling decision. Hands did do a good job, but then they freaked out and went and found Lussick, who was good enough at the end of the year. I can't knock what he did coming back, but
they really gave no hands.
I just don't know who made that decision, and in that it was almost like from there they tumbled. They lost Puppy. Lane missed a lot of the year on the back of being on the second rows of the year last year.
Absolutely.
And it was just like there was no attacking cohesion in between.
Especially on the edges of the ruck, Hands, they gave him no confidence, I thought, to start with. They basically just used him as a distributor. For mine, it was like he was instructed not to run the ball.
Yeah.
Just pick it up and pass it. And then after 5 or 6 games, they went, okay, maybe, and he started having a crack around the ruck, and he was actually quite good in attack. He was a bit of a spot player in defence.
But he's sharp too. He's quite quick at it,
because he's only a smaller bloke. He was spotted up a little bit, and his defence isn't, go on.
No, I'll get to defend him. Finish your hands story. No, finish your hands.
He was used as a spot player, which let them sort of get post-contact meters on him and offloads off the back of him being a defender. But I think there's something there for him as an attacking hooker. I think, they can work with him, but now they've gone and found Lussick, as you said, so they go from there.
Brad Arthur's almost a hook.
Yeah.
In that he doesn't trust
young blokes. Yeah.
How often he'd never this year
the only one he's stuck with.
He would never have when they were full strength. He would never have more than one of their front rows off the field.
Yep.
He hated it until he had to. You'd always have. He needed that. I don't think he likes trusting those young blokes to do it.
Yeah. No.
And
makes sense.
That's bled into Hands because I think Hands is an exciting player. I think they should. You run with what you got at the table. And I know it gives you a spine at all runners, but you find a way to work with that. I know it's hard when I'm sure it wouldn't be particularly pleasant at times shoveling balls to Mitch Moses because I'm sure he's not the most calming influence.
No.
He's not a dinner suit player by any means, unless he wants to be. But
unless he decides to be. Yeah.
But if he sees a hole, he's shouting and shouting, and on the other shoulder, you've got Gutho doing the same thing because he can see Sevo's.
And then the one you don't give it to is probably still screaming at you.
Exactly. So they've got a dominant back three that are always on top of it. So I think it's a hard thing to come in. And it's the other thing, with a pre-season, I think they'll be better. But it is incredible, speaking of BA, how regardless of personnel they had on an edge, they are always stripped on that wing.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Without fail.
Yeah.
They debuted, 4 blokes, and without fail they all conceded.
Every single one of them.
They were all pot planted. And then they brought Seaver back, and he might have been the first 20-try pot plan of the year. But I can't actually say he was a flop this year, given he scored 20 tries.
24 tries.
But I think
20
there was
tries,
4 or 5
yeah.
But there's 4 or 5 in a couple of games there along the way. But there was games where he's got the turning circle.
There was a stretch of about 3 or 4 games where he did fuck all. He made about 2 runs.
He's got the turning circle of the QE2, and
the work
does nothing else. But he does nothing else in between. He never has any of run meters.
Thou shall not be mentioned.
Exactly. So it's a weird thing because you can't move him to the centres because I don't think he moves left and right.
No.
Do you just juice him for 2 years?
He has to stay on the wing, and you need to use him as that crash,
and that's what you
crash
get.
play on the wing.
And that's where you're getting.
The only thing you can really do out of him is to
14.
try and get him to make some dummy half
Just
runs.
say you've got to run.
You have to.
Yeah.
You need to make 15 runs a game.
Yeah.
No matter what. Right? I don't care if 10 of them are out of dummy half and 5 of them is crashing over the line to score.
But if he does that and runs as hard as he can, he's going to bust 4 of them. And all of a sudden he's making 220 metres. They're a different team.
100%.
But I think I can't call him a flop, but I think he was disappointing in a lot of games.
Yeah, there's a lot of games where his attitude was not right.
But whatever their structure is wrong because it just and it's been this way, honest to God, for 10 years. Because they have that same defensive structure, but
Yeah, 1-4 to start the season. Brown suspension, obviously late season hurt. Just continual injuries to their front row. Lane, Paulo, RCG, all blokes
even
that
when they all
spent
got there,
time
Greg got
out.
injured.
Yeah,
when
Greg,
they-
exactly, and he was fantastic at different points of the year. That really hurt him towards the back end of the year. You mentioned they beat Penrith twice. Like they were fourth with 8 games to go, man.
Yeah.
And then they went and lost 5 of those 8
But they were
games.
4 8 games ago, and I don't think either of us would have tipped them in any of those remaining 8.
2 of them were buys. I think they won 2 of their last 9 games or something.
They
And-
limped into those buys.
And it was, standouts, Gutherson, obviously, Moses, Cartwright. Hopgood,
I think it's brushed over. Gutho, I assume he can't because did he get suspended or something along the way? But I noticed, like, for him to be behind Teddy in the 3 nominations for fullback of the year is wrong. He was better than Teddy for 90% this year.
yes. Yeah,
At club level?
Yeah. At club level. Yeah.
He might have been
If-
suspended. I think he got the suspension.
yeah,
Maybe
I
it's
think
fair enough.
He might have.
But
yeah.
this was as good a year as Clint Gusson has produced as an individual footballer,
Yep.
I think.
Positives, Penasini, even though he does have his
Yeah,
defensive
but-
inefficiencies.
Was it?
Ball in hand, he's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I have high
You
expectations.
need
of
someone
him.
to help him with his defence, but ball in
Yeah.
hand, he is very good.
Yeah.
RCG, obviously injured, but pretty much every time he was out there, he was close to their best forward, if not their best forward.
The resurgence of Bryce Cartwright.
Yeah, I put him in as a standout.
Yeah.
And he's not even in as positive. He
Yeah.
was. I thought he was one of their standouts this year. And Hands, I think, is a positive moving forward, something they can work with, but whether they do or not. And I get question marks around Paulo. I thought there was parts of this season where he was nowhere near where he should have been.
Yeah.
Dylan Brown obviously comes down to suspension. He did have a space of about 6 weeks where he was brilliant, but whether he's what's going on off field and his attitude, he needs to obviously fix that up a little bit. Lane injury again, it's a bit hard to probably put him in that questionable position because he is very good,
just forgive
but
him.
he's a lot of injuries, and it's their bench
But
rotation.
they need to work out as well what is Madison. What is like who is
Well, the next 3 I was about to
Yeah.
mention. Offa and Gowie, obviously,
Yeah.
is he going to stay there? Is he part of their plans moving forward? That bench rotation with Greg and Madison, how they work those guys. I think Madison should be a starter and he should be in there most weeks, but he went from being a starter to a benchy to a starter to a left edge to a back rower.
Yeah.
To a 13.
To a
Like
5'8",
you just
too.
got to work out what the fuck's going on there.
Yeah.
But their bench
I feel like he
rotation.
got lost a lot this year.
Their bench rotation for mine is one of their biggest issues.
Yeah. But that's part of the
And
fact
their
that BA
wingers.
won't
But-
trust to have. He won't back these young blokes. He won't have any of them. He won't have a young forward back on the field. It'll be one of those 4
Yeah.
have to be on the field. And the wingers are. I don't know who the defensive coach is, but there needs to be a review of that structure. And the thing is for Parramatta now, this is what you see is what you're going to get for the next 2, 3, 4 years because
It's not going to change much. I don't
their
think.
halves are all on 7, 8 year contracts, whatever they're on.
Yep.
Gutho's just re-signed.
Yep.
If Hands isn't there, that's going to be another young bloke or another has been, with all due respect. And their forwards are who they are. And on paper, they played a grand final last year. It's going to come back to injury, effort, and commitment as to what they produce next year. There's no in between with the Parramatta.
Just the runs that they went on of losing 4 out of the first 5
And,
games.
they conceded.
Losing 5 out of their last 7 or 8
habitually
games.
conceded. They're like the Titans. You knew they were going to concede 20 points.
And it was
26
just an
points.
effort thing. Like you saw the way the Titans changed their effort at the back end of the year to get them to the position. They probably deserve to be in the top bottom 4 the way they were going at the start of the year.
Yeah.
They didn't miss by much, but they still, their effort was heaps better at the back end of the
That's
year.
right.
And whether Parramatta can fix those defensive issues up next year is a big question mark as well.
They're just going to be I think it's going to be who they are.
Yeah.
They're going to knock over top 4 teams. They're going to get beaten by
They
the
might
Dragons.
sneak into the 8 here and there, but
Yeah.
they're probably going to hang around that.
If they remain full strength
Yeah.
for the whole year,
Somewhere between
they can be
6 and
6.
14.
Yeah. If
for
they
the next
don't, then
couple
they
of
won't.
years.
So, just a really interesting case study in everything Parramatta. Anything else from them? No.